Junior sensor analyst Kextel rubbed his 4 eyes and looked at his screen again. Something was very wrong. A strange ship had just appeared at the edge of their space territory. But this wasn't just any ordinary ship. It was moving so fast that it broke every rule of physics he knew. Kextal had been working at the sensor station for 5 years. He had seen thousands of ships come and go, fast ships, slow ships, big ships, small ships, but nothing like this. The energy readings coming from this mysterious vessel were completely impossible. According to his instruments, the ship was using power levels that could light up an entire star system. "Admiral Vorthak, sir," Kextal called out, his voice shaking with excitement and fear. "You need to see this right now." Admiral Vorthak was not easily impressed. He had conquered 17 different star systems in his military career. He had faced down alien armies, destroyed rebel fleets, and negotiated with the most dangerous pirates in the galaxy. His purple skin bore the scars of 100 battles, and his 6 arms had wielded weapons that could crack planets in half. But as he walked over to Kextal's station and saw the readings, even the mighty Admiral felt his confidence start to slip away like water through his fingers. "What in the 7 hells is that thing?" he muttered, staring at the display screen. The ship on the screen looked unlike anything in their vast military database. The Zephyrian Empire had records of every known vessel type across 12 different galaxies. They had files on ancient warships, modern cargo haulers, experimental research vessels, and even one-off custom builds made by crazy inventors. But this ship, it was completely unknown. What made it even more mysterious was how advanced it appeared to be. The Empire considered itself the most technologically superior civilization in the known universe. Their ships could travel faster than light, their weapons could destroy entire moons, and their shields could stop almost any attack. Yet this single unknown vessel was displaying technology that made their best ships look like children's toys. "Sir," Kextal said, his voice barely above a whisper, "the ship is sending us a message." Admiral Vorthak straightened his military uniform and cleared his throat. As the leader of the Imperial Fleet's 3rd Division, he had received messages from emperors, alien diplomats, and surrender offers from defeated enemies. He was ready for anything. "Put it through the main speakers," he commanded. The bridge of the Imperial warship fell completely silent. Every crew member stopped what they were doing and turned to listen. The communication officer flipped the switch, and a clear, calm voice filled the air. "Good morning, Zephyrian Empire. This is a package delivery notification. Sender: Humanity. Contents: 1 overdue invoice for services rendered and property damages. Estimated arrival time: soon enough for our purposes." The message was short, simple, and absolutely terrifying. For a moment, nobody on the bridge moved. Nobody breathed. Nobody even blinked. Then, all at once, chaos erupted. "Humanity!" shouted the weapons officer. "But that's impossible." "The old ones are just stories," cried the navigation specialist. "Humans are extinct," yelled the communications expert. Admiral Vorthak raised one of his 6 hands, and the bridge fell quiet again. But inside his mind, a storm of worry was brewing. Humanity wasn't supposed to exist anymore. Every schoolchild in the Empire learned about the old ones, the mysterious civilization that had once spread across the galaxy before vanishing without a trace exactly 50,000 years ago. The history books called them myths, legends, stories that parents told their children to make them behave. "Be good or the old ones will come back for you." That sort of thing. But if the history books were wrong, if humans were still alive somewhere out there in the vastness of space, then the Zephyrian Empire might be in serious trouble. Because according to those same stories, the old ones had been incredibly powerful. They had built cities that floated in the clouds, created machines that could think and feel, and traveled between stars as easily as walking across a room. And now, apparently, they were coming to collect an invoice. "Sir," Kextal said quietly, "what should we do?" Admiral Vorthak stared at the screen showing the approaching human ship. It was still moving impossibly fast, getting closer to their position with every passing second. Soon it would reach the outer defense grid of their homeworld. "Send a message to Imperial Command," he said finally. Tell them we have a situation that requires immediate attention. And get me every piece of information we have about the old ones. Every story, every legend, every half-remembered tale from our archives." "Yes, sir," the communications officer replied, her fingers flying over her control panel. But deep down, Admiral Vorthak knew that no amount of preparation would be enough. If the humans were real, if they were as powerful as the old stories suggested, and if they were coming to collect some kind of debt, then the Zephyrian Empire was about to face its greatest challenge ever. The mysterious ship continued its approach, silent and unstoppable, carrying with it the promise of answers to questions that nobody had thought to ask for 50,000 years. Chief Historian Melendra had always been proud of her job. For 30 years, she had worked in the deepest levels of the Imperial Archives, surrounded by millions of data files that told the glorious story of the Zephyrian Empire. She knew every detail of their great conquests, every battle that had expanded their territory, and every moment of triumph that had built their civilization. But today, as alarms blared throughout the capital city and news of the mysterious human ship spread like wildfire, Melendra found herself digging deeper into the archives than she had ever gone before. She was looking for anything, absolutely anything, that could tell them more about humanity and why they might be coming back. What she found made her blood run cold. Hidden away in a section marked "Administrative Errors, to be sorted later," Melendra discovered files that had been buried for thousands of years. These weren't glorious battle records or proud conquest stories. These were simple, boring paperwork files about property transfers and territorial claims. The kind of documents that nobody ever bothered to read, but as she opened file after file, a horrifying picture began to emerge. 50,000 years ago, the Zephyrian Empire hadn't conquered the galaxy through brilliant military strategy or superior weapons. They hadn't fought epic space battles or outsmarted their enemies. Instead, they had simply found empty planets and moved in. The files were full of reports from Zephyrian scouts who had discovered what they called abandoned settlements. Entire cities left empty, with the lights still on and food still warm. On tables, massive space stations floating in orbit with no crew aboard. Factories still running automatically, producing goods for people who were no longer there. The early Zephyrians had been amazed by their luck. Here were advanced civilizations with technology far beyond their own understanding, and apparently nobody was using them anymore. So they had done what seemed logical at the time. They moved in and claimed everything as their own. Melendra's hands trembled as she read report after report. The Zephyrians had taken over human cities and called them Zephyrian cities. They had used human technology and claimed they had invented it themselves. They had even kept human pets and told everyone they had discovered these strange creatures on newly explored worlds. The worst part was that nobody had questioned it. The Zephyrians had been so excited about their sudden good fortune that they never stopped to ask the obvious question: where had the original owners gone? As Melendra dug deeper, she found records of the incredible wealth that had been transferred. Trillions upon trillions of credits worth of infrastructure, technology, and resources. Entire solar systems full of valuable planets, mining operations, and research facilities. The humans hadn't just left behind a few empty houses. They had abandoned the most advanced civilization the galaxy had ever seen, and the Zephyrians had taken all of it without paying a single credit or even sending a thank you note. Meanwhile, 3 levels above in the Imperial Command Center, Admiral Vorthak was dealing with his own set of problems. The mysterious human ship was still approaching, and it was still broadcasting its strange messages. But now, instead of just the simple delivery notification, the ship was playing what could only be described as the most annoying elevator music in the universe. The same cheerful, repetitive tune played over and over again, occasionally interrupted by a calm, pleasant voice making announcements. "Attention, Zephyrian Empire," the voice would say in the tone of someone announcing delayed flights at a spaceport. "This is a friendly reminder that your account is currently 50,000 years overdue. Late fees and compound interest are still accumulating. Please have your payment ready upon our arrival." Then the elevator music would start again. "We appreciate your patience during this collection process," the voice continued during the next break in the music. "Please note that failure to resolve this matter promptly may result in additional charges for emotional distress, property damage, and really hurt feelings. Admiral Vorthak gritted his teeth and tried to ignore the increasingly passive-aggressive announcements. He had more pressing concerns, like the fact that his entire fleet seemed completely unable to deal with this single human vessel. He had ordered his best ships to intercept the approaching craft. These were warships that had conquered star systems, vessels equipped with the most advanced weapons and shields in the Empire. But as they closed in on the human ship, something very strange happened. The human vessel didn't attack them. It didn't run away. It didn't even seem to notice them. Instead, it simply continued on its course, while Admiral Vorthak's ships found themselves unable to get a proper target lock. "Sir," reported Captain Zekmar from the lead interceptor ship, "we can see the target with our eyes, but our sensors keep insisting there's nothing there." "What do you mean nothing's there?" Admiral Vorthak demanded. "It's right in front of you." "I know, sir, but according to our computers we're just flying through empty space. The targeting systems won't lock on, the weapons won't fire, and the navigation computer keeps trying to plot a course around an obstacle that it claims doesn't exist." Other ships reported similar problems. The human vessel seemed to exist in its own private reality, completely unaffected by anything the Zephyrian fleet could do. It was like trying to fight a ghost that could somehow still send radio messages. But perhaps the most unsettling thing about the human ship wasn't its advanced technology or its impossible-to-target nature. It was the attitude it projected. The vessel moved through space with the calm confidence of someone who owned the place. It didn't hurry. It didn't show any concern about the massive fleet surrounding it, and it certainly didn't seem worried about the outcome of this encounter. The ship radiated an aura of quiet superiority, like a landlord who had finally gotten tired of waiting for the rent and had decided to pay a personal visit to collect. It was the kind of presence that suggested the humans had backup plans for their backup plans, and probably backup plans for those too. As Admiral Vorthak watched his mighty fleet struggle uselessly against a single human vessel, he began to realize that the Zephyrian Empire might have seriously underestimated exactly who they were dealing with. The elevator music continued to play, cheerful and relentless, while somewhere deep in the archives, Chief Historian Mel Endra continued uncovering the uncomfortable truth about how the Empire had really been built. The human ship stopped just outside the main docking bay of the Imperial flagship, hovering in space like it owned the place. Admiral Vorthak stood on his bridge, surrounded by his best officers, all of them staring at the sleek vessel through the main viewing window. The ship was beautiful, in a way that made their own advanced warships look like crude metal boxes, held together with space tape. "Sir," whispered his tactical officer, "should we prepare weapons?" Before Admiral Vorthak could answer, something impossible happened. A shimmering blue light appeared in the center of the bridge, growing brighter and brighter until everyone had to shield their eyes. When the light faded, two figures stood where empty space had been just moments before. The first figure was clearly human, a woman with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing what looked like a casual uniform that somehow managed to appear both comfortable and incredibly sophisticated. She was smiling in a way that seemed friendly on the surface, but carried an undertone that made Admiral Vorthak's skin crawl. It was the kind of smile a predator might wear while politely asking its prey about the weather. The second figure was even more disturbing. It appeared to be some kind of briefcase floating in midair and covered in blinking lights. As Admiral Vorthak watched in amazement, the briefcase rotated slowly to examine the bridge's interior. "Oh my," the briefcase said in a crisp electronic voice. "This is quite unfortunate. Did you hire your interior decorator from a discount catalog? Because this color scheme is making my optical sensors hurt." Several Zephyrian officers reached for their weapons, but the human woman raised one hand in a casual gesture that somehow made everyone freeze in place. "Please don't bother with the weapons," she said pleasantly. "They won't work anyway, and I'd hate for anyone to strain themselves trying. My name is Captain Mira Kang, and this charming fellow is my legal assistant, Bert. We're here on official business." Admiral Vorthak found his voice, though it came out as more of a croak than his usual commanding tone. "How did you get on my ship? Our shields are at full power. Captain Mira looked genuinely puzzled by the question. Shields? Oh, you mean those cute energy barriers? Bert, did we remember to notice their shields? I believe I detected some minor electromagnetic fluctuations, Bert replied dryly. Rather like trying to stop a hurricane with a paper umbrella. Charming effort, though. The captain nodded sympathetically. I'm here about your unpaid rent. Admiral, 50,000 years of occupation plus interest, late fees, emotional damages, and what my grandmother would have called aggravation charges. Rent, Admiral Vorthak sputtered. What rent? We conquered those territories fair and... Square. Bert made a sound that might have been electronic laughter. Oh dear, that's not quite accurate, is it? According to our records, you moved into properties that were temporarily vacant and simply stayed, rather like house-sitting that went on for 50 millennia. Captain Mira reached into her uniform and pulled out what looked like a simple tablet, though it glowed with soft light and seemed to contain infinite depth. Don't forget the pet abandonment charges, Bert. Our goldfish, Mr. Bubbles, required extensive therapy after being left alone for 50,000 years. Do you have any idea how traumatic that is for a fish? The therapy bills alone are quite substantial, Bert added helpfully. Apparently goldfish hold grudges much longer than previously thought. Admiral Vorthak's military training finally kicked in. Now wait just 1 minute. Even if what you're saying is true, there has to be some kind of statute of limitations. You can't just show up after 50,000 years and demand payment. Captain Mira's smile grew wider, which somehow made it even more terrifying. Oh, Admiral, I think you're operating under a fundamental misunderstanding of the situation. Bert, would you please show him the invoice? The floating briefcase projected a holographic document into the air above the bridge. The document was enormous, not just in file size but in actual physical dimensions. It stretched from floor to ceiling and extended beyond the walls of the bridge, requiring everyone to crane their necks just to see small portions of it. Admiral Vorthak stared at the numbers displayed at the bottom of the bill. The total amount due was so large that his brain couldn't even process it properly. It was more money than the entire Zephyrian Empire had generated in its entire history. It was more money than existed in the known universe. This is impossible, he whispered. Nobody has this much money. Well, Captain Mira said reasonably, that's what compound interest will do to you. We started with a very reasonable rental rate, practically giving the place away, really. But 50,000 years of 3.2% annual interest tends to add up, Bert. Helpfully projected a smaller hologram showing the mathematical calculation. The original amount was quite modest, just 847 trillion credits for the entire galaxy. But with late fees, emotional distress charges, property damage, unauthorized pet adoption, and compound interest calculated daily. Well, mathematics can be quite unforgiving. Admiral Vorthak tried to read the document more carefully, but quickly realized that it was written in languages he couldn't understand. Some of the text seemed to be in scripts that hurt his eyes to look at, while other sections appeared to be written in languages that hadn't been invented yet. What language is this? He demanded. Oh, it's written in standard galactic legal code, Captain Mira explained cheerfully. Plus a few temporal dialects for the advanced clauses, some quantum legalese for the interdimensional portions, and there's a small section in ancient bureaucratic that covers the emotional distress provisions. I've never heard of any of those languages. That's because they don't exist yet, Bert said matter-of-factly, but they will, and when they do, this contract will be legally binding under those legal systems as well. We believe in planning. Ahead, Captain Mira folded her hands behind her back and looked around the bridge with the air of someone conducting a friendly inspection. I must say, you've done wonderful things with our old galaxy. A bit primitive compared to what we had before, but there's a certain rustic charm to your approach. Our galaxy? Admiral Vorthak's voice rose to a squeak. Well, technically it's still our galaxy, Captain Mira said patiently. We just stepped out for a while. Think of it as a very, very long vacation, but now we're back, and it's time to settle accounts. She walked over to one of the control panels and examined it with the kind of polite interest that a parent might show when looking at their child's crayon drawings. Bert, make a note that they've been using our old technology as the basis for their entire civilization. That should qualify for unauthorized patent usage fees, don't you think? Already calculated and included in Section 847B, Bert replied smugly, along with copyright infringement, trademark violations, and unlicensed use of our architectural designs. Admiral Vorthak felt a strange sensation in his chest that he eventually realized was his heart attempting to stop beating from sheer terror. The casual way these humans discussed legal concepts that span dimensional barriers and time itself made it clear that the Zephyrian Empire was dealing with beings so far beyond their understanding that resistance might not even be possible. "So," Captain Mira said brightly, turning back to face him with that terrifying smile, "shall we discuss payment options?" Admiral Vorthak's mind raced as he stared at the impossible bill floating in front of him. The amount was so large that paying it would require dismantling every planet in the Empire and selling them for scrap metal. Even then, they'd probably still owe money. "Wait," he said, his voice cracking with desperation. "Perhaps we can work out some kind of payment plan. We could offer you the Andromeda sector. It's got 12 inhabited worlds and excellent mining." "Right?" Captain Mira tilted her head thoughtfully, while Bert made electronic notes in the air. 12 worlds, you say? That's adorable. Bert, what does 12 worlds convert to in current galactic currency?" "Approximately 0.1% of the total debt," Bert replied cheerfully. "Though I appreciate the gesture. It's like offering to pay for a starship with pocket lint." Admiral Vorthak wiped sweat from his forehead. "Okay, what about the entire Outer Rim? 57 star systems, including 3 major trade routes. Still wouldn't cover the late fees from the first 1,000 years," Captain Mira said gently, as if explaining mathematics to a small child. The Admiral's desperation grew stronger. He turned to his communications officer. "Contact the Imperial Palace. Tell them to prepare the emergency treasury, all of it." Within minutes, offers began pouring in from across the Empire. The Emperor himself authorized the transfer of the royal treasury, which contained the wealth accumulated from 1,000 conquered worlds. Regional governors offered their entire planetary systems. Military commanders volunteered their fleets. Some particularly panicked nobles even offered their firstborn children as payment. Captain Mira listened to each offer with infinite patience, nodding politely as Bert calculated the value of everything being presented. "The Emperor's daughter, Princess Zalnara, is quite lovely," one desperate governor transmitted. "She's trained in 17 forms of combat and can speak 43 languages." "I'm sure she's delightful," Captain Mira replied kindly. "But we're not really in the market for royalty at the moment. Bert, what's our current total?" "If we accept everything they've offered, all the territories, treasures, fleets, and assorted royal family members, we would have approximately 0.003% of the amount owed." Captain Mira sighed sadly. "You see the problem, Admiral. You're trying to pay for a Star Destroyer with the change from your couch cushions." Admiral Vorthak's desperation turned to anger. "This is ridiculous. No debt could possibly be this large. You're trying to bankrupt the entire Empire." "Oh no," Captain Mira said, her smile finally fading. "I think you misunderstand our intentions completely. We don't want your money, Admiral. We don't want your territories or your treasures or your royal family members." She walked closer to him, and for the first time Admiral Vorthak could see something dangerous glinting in her eyes. "We want justice, and more importantly, we want to teach you why squatting on someone else's property was a very, very poor life choice." Lights blinked faster as if the AI was excited. "Oh, are we doing the demonstration now? I do love the demonstration." Admiral Vorthak backed away, his 6 arms reaching for weapons that suddenly felt very inadequate. "Demonstration? What demonstration?" Captain Mira pulled out a small device that looked like a simple remote control. "Bert, please inform our friends outside that they have exactly 60 seconds to leave our immediate vicinity, or they're going to become part of today's lesson." Through the bridge windows, Admiral Vorthak could see his massive fleet surrounding the single human ship. Over 1 million vessels, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and fighters. The most powerful military force the galaxy had ever assembled. Surely they could handle one small human vessel, no matter how advanced it might be. "I don't think so," Admiral Vorthak said, his confidence returning. "You're outnumbered 1,000,000 to 1. Even your advanced technology can't overcome those odds." He activated his command console and opened a channel to the entire fleet. "This is Admiral Vorthak. The human vessel has refused our generous payment offers and is now threatening us. All ships prepare to fire on my command." Captain Mira looked genuinely sad. "Bert, they didn't take our friendly advice. Some people simply refuse to learn without hands-on experience," Bert replied philosophically. "Final warning, Admiral," Vorthak announced to the fleet. "Human vessel, you will leave our territory immediately or we will destroy you." Captain Mira pressed a single button on her remote control. "Collection protocol activated," she said quietly. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then across the entire Zephyrian fleet, every single screen display and control panel simultaneously lit up with bright, cheerful messages. "Attention," the messages read in friendly, colorful text. "Your warranty has expired. This equipment is now operating beyond its recommended service life. Please contact your local Humanity customer service representative to renew your coverage." Admiral Vorthak stared in horror as his own command console began playing a jaunty little tune while displaying a message that read, "This tactical computer is now 50,000 years overdue for its scheduled maintenance. Please insert payment to continue operations." Across the fleet, weapons systems began shutting down one by one, not violently or dramatically, but with polite little notification sounds and helpful error messages. "We're sorry," the weapons computers announced in cheerful voices, "but this plasma cannon service has been suspended due to non-payment. Thank you for choosing Humanity Defense Systems." The ship's life support systems joined the rebellion next. Instead of simply shutting off, they began playing smooth jazz music while displaying messages like, "Enjoying our premium oxygen service? Please remember that breathing is a paid subscription feature." But perhaps the most embarrassing failure came from an unexpected source. Throughout the fleet, bathroom facilities began displaying out-of-service messages at precisely the moment when thousands of nervous crew members needed them most. "This toilet is currently unavailable," read the signs that appeared on bathroom doors across 1,000,000 ships. "Service has been temporarily suspended pending payment verification. We apologize for any inconvenience," Bert's voice echoed through every communication system in the fleet simultaneously. "This is your daily reminder that you are currently experiencing the natural consequences of your own actions. Please note that additional penalties are being calculated for attempted violence against authorized collection agents." Admiral Vorthak watched in helpless rage as his mighty fleet became completely powerless. Ships drifted harmlessly in space, their crews unable to fight, unable to flee, and increasingly unable to use the bathroom. "How is this possible?" he whispered. Captain Mira looked at him with something that might have been pity. "Admiral, 90% of your technology is based on equipment you found in our old cities. Did you really think we wouldn't include remote management features in our own devices?" She gestured toward the windows, where 1,000,000 disabled warships floated like giant metal sculptures. Every weapon, every engine, every computer system, even every toilet in your empire, they're all running on our old technology, and we've just reminded them who they really work for. Bert added cheerfully, "It's quite remarkable how dependent you've become on systems you never actually understood. Perhaps next time you'll read the user manual." Admiral Vorthak sank into his command chair, finally understanding that the Zephyrian Empire had just learned what it felt like to be completely and utterly outmatched by their former landlords. The silence on Admiral Vorthak's bridge was deafening. Outside the windows, 1,000,000 Imperial warships floated helplessly in space like toys that had run out of batteries. Inside the ship, crew members were discovering that even their coffee machines were demanding payment before they would brew another cup. "Sir," whispered his communications officer, "the entire fleet is reporting the same problems. Nothing works anymore. The Emperor is requesting immediate status updates, but our long-range communications are playing classical music and asking for credit verification." Admiral Vorthak stared at Captain Mira, who was examining her fingernails with the casual interest of someone waiting for a bus. "What do you want from us?" he asked quietly. "That's a much better question," Captain Mira replied approvingly. "Bert, would you please display our reasonable and generous offer?" The floating briefcase projected a new hologram into the air. This document was much shorter than the previous bill, but somehow even more terrifying in its simplicity. Option 1, Bert announced cheerfully. Continue your current path of stubborn resistance. Your entire civilization will remain in its present state of technological dysfunction until you all learn to make fire with sticks again. Estimated timeline for societal collapse, 6 to 8 months. Admiral Vorthak felt his blood turn to ice water. Option 2, Bert continued, accept our generous payment plan. Terms, 1 million years of monthly installments, plus mandatory educational courses for all Imperial citizens. Additional benefits include restoration of bathroom privileges, return of basic life support functions, and we'll even throw in a customer service helpline for technical difficulties. 1 million years? Admiral Vorthak's voice cracked like a teenager's. Captain Mira nodded sympathetically. It does sound like a long time, but remember, we're very patient people. Your great-great-great-great-grandchildren's great-great-great-great-grandchildren will be making the final payment. Think of it as a family tradition, Bert added helpfully. We've calculated the monthly payment to be quite reasonable. Only 847 trillion credits per month. That's less than what you currently spend on military uniforms. Admiral Vorthak opened his mouth to protest, then closed it again. With their entire fleet disabled and their civilization running on technology that no longer obeyed them, they didn't have much choice. Before you decide, Captain Mira said, settling into a chair that materialized out of thin air, let me tell you a little story about why we left in the first place. She gestured around the bridge with an amused smile. 50,000 years ago, we didn't vanish mysteriously or get wiped out by some cosmic disaster. We simply moved to a higher dimensional plane because the neighborhood was getting too noisy. Too noisy? Admiral Vorthak repeated blankly. Do you have any idea how loud a galactic war sounds when you're trying to enjoy a quiet weekend? Captain Mira asked. Exploding stars, screaming space battles, entire civilizations throwing tantrums, and shooting at each other. It was like living next to a construction site that never stopped working. Bert projected images of humanity's advanced civilization, cities that floated between dimensions, technology that seemed more like art than machinery, and beings who had clearly evolved far beyond the need for physical conflict. So we packed up and moved to a nice, quiet dimension where we could pursue higher learning, inner peace, and really excellent coffee, Captain Mira continued. We left our old things behind because, frankly, we'd outgrown them. It was like leaving toys in the attic when you move to a new house. But we've been watching, she added, and her tone became slightly less friendly. We've been watching as you moved into our old homes, used our old technology, and built an entire civilization on our leftovers. And to be honest, we've been watching with the kind of disappointment that parents feel when they come home to find their teenagers have thrown a house party that lasted 50,000 years. Admiral Vorthak felt a strange mixture of shame and terror. We didn't know you were coming back. Of course you didn't, Captain Mira said gently, because you never bothered to ask where we'd gone or why we might have left. You just assumed we were gone forever and started treating our property like it was yours. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the disabled fleet with something that might have been pity. The thing is, Admiral, humans don't abandon things lightly. When we leave something behind, there's usually a very good reason for it. Sometimes it's because we've outgrown it. Sometimes it's because it's dangerous. And sometimes it's because we're testing to see what the new neighbors will do with it. This was a test? Admiral Vorthak asked weakly. In a way, Captain Mira admitted. We were curious to see what kind of civilization would develop using our old technology. Would they become wise and peaceful? Would they use our tools to build something beautiful? Or would they become exactly the kind of noisy, violent, territorial species that made us want to move away in the first place? The implication hung in the air like a toxic cloud. So, Captain Mira said, turning back to face him with that terrible smile, congratulations, you failed the test spectacularly. Admiral Vorthak slumped in his chair. We accept your payment plan. Excellent, Bert chirped happily. I'll begin processing the paperwork immediately. Please note that your first payment is due next month, and late fees will be calculated hourly. Captain Mira nodded approvingly. Don't look so glum, Admiral. This is actually good news. Part of your payment plan includes mandatory educational courses for all Imperial citizens, basic galactic courtesy, why you shouldn't take things that don't belong to you, and my personal favorite, how to ask permission before moving into someone else's house. We'll also be providing cultural sensitivity training, Bert added, and a comprehensive course on reading the fine print before touching ancient technology. As Captain Mira prepared to leave, she paused at the bridge doorway. One final piece of advice, Admiral. The next time you discover what appears to be abandoned property from an advanced civilization, ask yourself a simple question. Why did they leave? Because I guarantee you, if humans abandon something, there's probably a very good reason you don't want to touch it. She smiled one last time, but this smile was different, warmer, almost motherly. Learn from this experience. Grow. Become the kind of neighbors we'd actually want to have. Who knows, in a few 100,000 years, we might even consider reducing your interest rate. With that, both Captain Mira and Bert disappeared in another flash of blue light, leaving behind only the faint scent of ozone and the sound of Admiral Vorthak's dignity crashing to the floor. Across the fleet, systems began coming back online, one by one, but each device now displayed a small permanent reminder: property of humanity, licensed for use by Zephyrian Empire, payment plan active. Bert's voice echoed through every communication system one final time. Thank you for choosing Humanity Collection Services. Your business is important to us, even if it did take you 50,000 years to acknowledge it. Please remember that customer service representatives are standing by to help with any questions about your new payment plan. Have a day. As the human ship departed with the same casual confidence it had arrived with, Admiral Vorthak stared out at his fleet and realized that the mighty Zephyrian Empire had just learned the most expensive lesson in galactic history. They had discovered that in the cosmic game of finders keepers, humans had not only invented the rules, they had also copyrighted the instruction manual, trademarked the concept, and charged compound interest on the education. The Zephyrian Empire would never look at abandoned property the same way again.